Welcome to the San Francisco Public Library Commission meeting for August 15th, 2024. The time is 4:30. I'm Margot Schaub, and I serve as the Library Commission Affairs Analyst. This meeting is being held in person in the main Library Crut Auditorium, and members of the public can observe the meeting using the Zoom system by following the link in the library's event calendar or by calling 1-877-853-5247 and entering Zoom ID number 862-2216-4779. Members of the public who are attending the meeting in person may provide public comment for up to 3 minutes for each item on the agenda. Library commissioners in attendance are President Connie Wolf, Vice President Pete Wong, Commissioners Mall, Lomax, Giarduzzi, and Lopez.
Thank you very much. And hello and welcome to the August 15th, 2024 meeting of the San Francisco Public Library Commission. We are pleased to welcome those here with us in Corrett Auditorium and our virtual audience over Zoom. We have a full meeting ahead, and we will start with the Ramaytush Ohlone Land Acknowledgement. The area now known as San Francisco is the unceded ancestral homeland of the Ramaytush Ohlone peoples of the San Francisco Peninsula. As the original peoples of this land, the Ramaytush Ohlone have never ceded, lost, nor forgotten their responsibilities as the caretakers of this place. We recognize that we benefit from living, working, and learning on their traditional homeland. As uninvited guests, we affirm their sovereign rights as First Peoples and wish to pay our respects to the ancestors, elders, and relatives of the Ramaytush community. If you have not already done so, all the materials for this meeting are available on the Library Commission webpage or in the back of the auditorium here in Corrett. Today we have a total of 6 agenda items, and we will begin with item number 1, which is general public comment. At this time, we invite members of the public attending here in Corrett to address the Commission on items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Commission. The public has the opportunity to address the Commission on today's agenda items when that item is called. So this is truly general public comment. General public comment is now open here in Corrett Auditorium.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and those present. This is Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. Well, our Governor Newsom has been in the news lately, and one of the big things that he did was to send letters to school leaders about the problematic and I would say toxic effects of social media in particular. This is a copy of his letter dated August 13th. There's an introductory paragraph, and then he goes on in the second paragraph. Excessive smartphone use among youth is linked to increased anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues. And he goes on to cite some further statistics and concludes the paragraph combined with the U.S. Surgeon General's warning about the risks of social media, it is urgent to provide reasonable guardrails for smartphone use in schools. Now, it's true that a certain amount of his concern is about smartphones in schools as distractions, although one certainly might say that smartphone use in a library is a distraction for both the user and others around, or could be. But the key here is that the unqualified problems and toxicity of social media is stated here, and he's quoting the Surgeon General, who I have quoted to you before multiple times over multiple years. And you continue to advertise social media. This is at the library, last page. At the bottom, you have Facebook, Instagram, formerly Twitter, and one more. You've got Get Social on page 2, exclamation point. It's the only exclamation point that I have seen in this publication. And then you've got it again on page 7. Continually pulling people into and advertising not just these things, but these things, it's bad enough. That shouldn't be happening. If people want to know something, fine, the library has information, but it shouldn't be touting. And your biases toward everything electronic and your neglect of books is not right, and it's certainly not free and equal access, particularly to those who don't have the access or don't want to. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment?
Hello. Hi, I'm Michael Vincent from Friends of the Library. Great to see everyone. I'm here with not many updates, but one big one. Emily has been at the helm of Friends for a few months now, and we are in the process of finally hiring a new development director. This is huge. We should have an announcement maybe next week, and someone to come visit you all and give public comment next month. So that's a really exciting time for us. We have our next book sale happening next month. Sorry. Yes, on at the beginning of September, I think September 1st. And we have some more wonderful things. Friends of the Library is chugging along. It's kind of a slower time for us, but we are redesigning our website, entering our strategic planning, and very excited to report out once we have more information. So thank you all so much and have a great day.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing that there's no further, one more.
Hello, my name is Cesar Gonzalez, and I come here to read the newspapers up in the 5th floor. It's a great service. But lately, you guys have only been getting one issue of the Wall Street Journal, and that's the newspaper that I read. And based on what I've seen, like it's the most popular newspaper, and like we have people literally fighting over it. And the reason why I'm here is because I was reading the newspaper, and then a patron that always comes and it's always looking for the same newspaper was just complaining, saying he was gonna complain to you guys and to the staff about that I read the newspaper and I take it a long time. I spoke with a librarian, and it wasn't even 10 o'clock, it was 9:45. It's like saying that I've been using the newspaper for more than an hour. The librarian told him it hasn't been more than an hour. The point is that, can you guys like get more than one copy of the Wall Street Journal? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was important for us to hear, and we're glad that we can provide that service for you. Any further public comment? Seeing that there's no further public comment on item number 1 is now closed. And we will now move to the approval of the minutes of the July 18th, 2024 meeting for possible action. Before we discuss this at the commission level, we will open it up for public comment. Just a reminder, public comment is limited to this particular agenda item. Public comment on item number 2 is now open in Correct.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. So I got that out in less than 15 seconds. And there's a reason that I give that, so that those who might not be here can get in touch, as they certainly can with you if they feel like it, or with the administration. You've once again censored, particularly my critical comments about social media. Perhaps that's part of your self-assumed or otherwise role as a sales folks for the internet and social media, especially since much of that is run out of our company town, such as Facebook and such as Twitter. It's been almost 2 years since I talked to you about Frances Haugen's testimony at the Senate hearing. And she testified, the summary was Facebook prioritizes profits over safety. And I think I've said that every month for almost 3 years, but you don't have that in here. And it should. Facebook's toxicity, especially to kids, and the Surgeon General, who I've been quoting, who has a whole report on this, is omitted from these public comments once again, and you should include those there. With respect to what I said about and that was on item 1 for the July 18 minutes. On item 2, what I said was much more than what you vaguely described as jumbled and lacking clarity. I think I was specific about things that you did not include, as I am being now. And you should certainly include that I provided specifics of critical remarks, which I made, including, I believe I commented about your censorship of my comments, and providing specifics which I have provided. And a one-liner doesn't do justice to any kind of a summary of what I have said. I believe that Glenn Rogers, under item 3, had further comments about alternate locations that he thought would be good and would work. I certainly commented on the lack of specific goals in the plans, including what the capacity would be for books, which is a standard thing that you would normally provide with planning for building a new library, and you did not. I said that.
Thank you very much. Any further public comment on this agenda item to approve the July Commission meeting minutes? Hearing that there are no further requests for comments, public comment on this item is now closed, and we move to the Commission discussion and action. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I just have an amendment
Okay.
or a change.
Great.
It's a typo on item 3, the second page of item 3, Lopez with a Z and not an S.
So would someone like to make a motion to approve the?
I move.
Hang on.
Sorry.
Let me just finish. To approve the minutes of the July Commission meeting with the one spelling correction. Would someone like to make a motion?
I move.
Do we have a second?
I second.
So we have a motion from Commissioner Mall and a second from Commissioner Lomax Garaducci to approve the meeting minutes with the one addition.
And I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf.
Aye.
Vice President Wong.
Aye.
Commissioner Mall.
Aye.
Commissioner Lomax Garaducci.
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Thank you. We now turn to item number 3, which is which we're looking forward to, a discussion on collection utilization trends. And we look forward to learning more about how our users and the community are using our collections. So I turn it over to our city librarian, Michael Lambert.
Thank you, President Wolf, and good evening, library commissioners, library staff. Appreciate this opportunity to report out on collections utilization trends for the most recent fiscal year, FY24, ending June 30. The provision of library collections, physical and digital, is a core service line that supports all of our strategic priorities, particularly as a resource provider and a champion for literacy. Shelley Cocking, our Chief of Collections and Technical Services, will be offering this report.
Thank you so much, Michael. So my first slide here is our six-year look at our circulation trends. I normally do 5, but I made it 6 this year to make sure that we could take a look at it and compare things to the last full fiscal year pre-COVID times. And you can see already that we're doing really good on our circulation. It's up to over 14 million circs a year. Physical circulation is getting very close to what it was pre-COVID. However, e-circulation is up significantly. It's a 70% increase over what it was before COVID. Part of this is the change in behavior during the COVID closure time, but a big part of it is the COVID closure caused the publishers to get rid of all those embargoes. So we no longer have to wait 3 months in order to get the popular titles, which is great for us. And then we've seen a real increase there. One thing that happened during our strategic plan work is when we did the survey, we heard back from patrons at 16 of our branches that they actually want to see more books in genres and subject areas. And that was kind of surprising to my staff and I because we have a really healthy budget and we buy lots of books every year. So we took a deeper delve into our circulation to try to figure out exactly what patrons want from us. So here you can see a comparison from fiscal year 19 in blue to fiscal year 24 in orange. The big winner is e-audio. That's not at all surprising because that's actually the largest growing area of the publishing industry. So, and not surprisingly, it's growing here too. And that's all brand new circulation for us because books on CD were never really that popular because they're so bulky. Ebooks and books have both seen an increase in circulation. We've seen a little increase in e-video, but the reality is most studios don't provide the most popular movies and TV shows to the library market, so we'll never be able to circulate in that form. Physical DVDs have seen a real decrease in circulation, and you can see that drop in circ here on the last bar. I always like to include the top 10 titles because that's fun. And again, this year I'm splitting them to show the difference in our collection uses. Physical collections this year, not surprisingly, as you know, book clubs, national book clubs are up there, things we had on the same page. But even though our DVD circulation is down, 3 of the titles this year are DVD. So popular films are still really expensive to get on those streaming services, and patrons are still coming down and asking for them from us. However, if you look at our e-media, new this year are 2 digital audiobooks. And one of them, both the ebook and the digital audiobook, hit the top 10 list. Not only is this interesting to see how digital audio is really taking over, but Fourth Wing is something that became popular on Book Talk. I'm sure you've heard of TikTok, and that's now a platform that new authors use to promote their works. It's a big thing in the publishing industry. And we really have to pay attention to it because small little authors we've never heard of might blow up overnight. Fourth Wing is an example of that, as well as Happy Place. I'm happy to let you know that we've actually seen an increase in the number of library card holders over the last year. It's 6% up this year over last. However, I think it's about 55% of the residents of San Francisco have cards. So it's lots of room for growth. And as we start our new strategic priority work, we'll be able to get out there, connect with our community, and bring in new card holders. So I'm hoping to see a big increase there over the next couple of years. There's also a big difference in usage for our residents versus people who live outside the Bay Area. As you can see, the use of physical collections, which is represented by P for just people who use only our print collection, and teal, who use both print and e-collections, has started to recover since COVID times for the San Francisco residents. But if you compare that to people outside for the rest of the Bay Area, we're not seeing much recovery at all. And to me, what that's saying is the libraries are feeling the same impact of the work from home changes that the rest of the city of San Francisco is experiencing. So as I mentioned, my staff is really trying to figure out what is it that people want to see. We can't buy everything, but we want to make sure we're buying the right stuff. So one thing we did was we pulled out everything that circulated in the last fiscal year, and we took a look at it in different ways. And one of which was to look at the copyright date. So you can see in blue, adults are really interested in the newest titles. And once it's a few years old, the interest drops significantly. However, with children, which you can see in orange, they have a longer period of time that titles keep interest to them. Not surprising, new kids going into grade school are going to want to read Harry Potter. Those Elephant and Piggy readers are going to continue being the best readers out there for kids for many years. So we'll do a lot of replacement lists for children's and reduce the amount of replacements we do for adults. So one of the nicest things for us for the trends in physical collections is delays caused to shipping and backlogs finally cleared up. So we're able to, once again, get books pretty close to street date and get them out to our patrons right away. We've seen an overall increase in circulations from last year by 12% in our physical collections, but mostly it's been in areas that are for leisure reading. People want to take a break from the screen and sit and enjoy a book. So you can see we had a good increase in adult fiction circulation of about 20%. And graphic novels for all ages have become super popular. They were popular before and they keep growing, and we're up almost 20%. And when looking at all those item records that had at least one checkout during the year, we noticed that 34% of them were items that were added to the collection within the last year. So that's really showing us we need to keep buying that new material, getting it out, and doing the work on the back end, weeding the things that are no longer of interest. Nonfiction is the one area of the publishing industry which continues to see declines in sales. There's some exceptions for things that don't translate well to ebooks. And that's been true for us as well. We have some areas that we've seen increases in: crafts, cooking, health, and travel. The one thing we noticed, though, is pre-COVID, we could depend on patrons to place holds if they were interested in a book. But now, if the book's not on the shelf, they just go to the web. They can find recipes and craft help there. They don't need us, and they won't go to the ebook. So my staff has been working hard to make sure we get more copies of these kinds of titles so they're there and available for patrons when they come in. As I mentioned, DVD circulation is down, but adult film overall is up 4%. Recently, in February, a lot of the streaming services raised their prices significantly. So many of us, including myself, took a hard look at what you're subscribed to and dropped a number of them. This has caused people to come back to the library and want the disc again, but they don't seem to be as interested in DVD. They really want Blu-ray now. That's a new thing since in the last couple of years, so we're going to buy more and more Blu-ray to meet that demand right at the beginning. Audio circulation is up, but just basically in two areas. You can see the picture of Creepy Crayon. There's a new format where there's a picture book and they embed an MP3 player right in the book. So it's great for little kids. They don't need a CD player to be able to listen while they view. And it's super popular, almost 70% increase in circulation. It's now available in English, Spanish, and Chinese, and we're growing that as quickly as we can as they publish them. Vinyl circulation continues to be very popular. We've actually just added 2 more branches to increase the space for that collection. So Excelsior and Richmond just got their vinyl today, I hear, and they're going to be putting out, and we'll keep growing that area. And of course, we continue to do our racial equity work. We spend more money on language materials over the last year. We saw the Spanish language circulation go up significantly, which was great. Chinese language materials, that's the one area we had a really hard time getting materials into the country still until about January. So we've only seen a small increase of 4%. Hope to see that improve over the next year. And I'm sure you remember that you voted to approve a diversity audit budget of $200,000 to increase the BIPOC representation in our English language collection. We've been working on that. We've added a circulating collection to the African American History Center and the Hormel Center. And we have software that tracks how well we're doing. And when we started the project, 22% of our collection covered these areas, and now we're up to 26%. So e-collections, of course, has always been keeping us busy. There's always new formats. We launched Bay Beats this year, and in just from November to June, we saw 46,000 circulations on that platform. We have a new round of musicians coming in, and that'll launch this fall, and I'm sure we'll see a lot of growth in circulation there. Access 360 launched, rebranded itself, and then launched their new app, Boundless, and that came out in September. Canopy switched from charging the same amount per checkout to a ticketing system. So now you can use the tickets, and it's a different amount depending on how long the film is you're going to see. That's been great because there's zero increase for us, but there's actually been an increase in circulation for our patrons. So it's been a real money saver. We've had the New York Times for a long time, but it's been through a web page access, and you have to come back every 3 days to get a code. Many patrons find this frustrating. So the New York Times decided this year to offer us a free version of it on Press Reader. So for no additional money, people can now use the Press Reader app and just have access to it at any time. No codes needed. We also invested in a lot of digital magazine archives. And the reason for this is we want to make it easier for people to access those older issues of magazines. So instead of coming to the main and having to ask for a bound volume, they can now get it even in the comfort of their home. Over the years, you've asked me some questions on ebook formats and pricings. So I thought this year I would add a chart so you can kind of understand it better. Fourth Wing, as I mentioned, was a new author, unexpected interest in that book. So we only bought 6 copies originally of that book when we added it to our collection. It was inexpensive. We got a good discount from our vendor and just paid a little less than $20. But then we had to scramble and buy more copies. The publisher had to scramble and print more copies. So it takes time and staff. There's the unseen price to that book of staff having to put spine labels on and Mylar and barcodes and get it out to the patrons. This is a Macmillan title. They do metered access. They allow access to the title for 2 years, regardless of how many checkouts. It's expensive at $60, but it is available immediately. So if somebody puts a hold on it in Overdrive, it's really easy for us to buy copies, and more copies are available within an hour. Macmillan does not provide cost per checkout models for Hoopla, so we'll never be able to offer it in that way, and unless we get it in the audiobook format. That means that we'll have to constantly be spending $60 to keep that title in our collection every 2 years. Hillbilly Elegy is a HarperCollins title. I really like theirs, metered access, because they do 26 checkouts. So the nice thing about that is that if it doesn't end up being that interesting, that title will stay around until those 26 checkouts happen. And to me, that's about what we would see in books anyways. And you can see the older titles, it's a very fair price. Really, if you consider the staff time saving, it's actually cheaper for us to do that than get the physical book. Of course, it's already available on Hoopla. People don't have to wait in line like they do on Libby or in our physical books. Check it out immediately, and that's how our savvy ebook readers go. They hop around the different platforms and find it where they can get it as soon as possible. Yellowface is another HarperCollins title. We did a good job buying this one. We got 175 copies to start with because we knew it would be popular. Got them shelf ready, so no staff time really. And we still got a good price on them. Still the meter access, 26 checkouts per copy we purchase from Libby. It's $42 though, because it's a newer book. So they do reduce the prices as the books age. Still, considering we have staff time savings for processing, it's still not too expensive at $42. However, we can't have access to that on Hoopla for 6 months because they do embargoes. So we have to wait 6 months before it's going to be available there. And with Hoopla, we have access to those collections whether or not someone uses them, so it'll just be there forever. I'm going to wrap it up with talking about providing resources outside our walls. As you know, we launched our first kiosk in Treasure Island last year. A second one opened in Huntersview back in September. And Dog Patch, I just went out and loaded the collection in it today, so it's pretty exciting. And Sunnydale will come in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and we have to have launch parties in those locations soon. For e-collections, the new Boundless app has a cool new option, which is a Digi pop-up. So you can see the QR code here on the screen. If you scan that, you can get access to our ebook platform without having to have a library card. So we've been trying it out in different areas as a pilot, putting posters up on the ferries, in jury waiting rooms, and also on our One City, One Book campaign. The jury and waiting rooms were okay. That was a 6-month sampling from them. But the One City, One Book, that's only 1 month. So that was the winner for us, doing it in combination with another marketing campaign, making sure people could easily get the Chinese groove whenever they wanted it in that manner. We also have Hoopla available in our jails. You guys approved a budget last year for that. I wanted to give you some stats. We had almost served up to almost 1,500 residents a month. And it's very popular. Many people max out on their circulations. We saw over 200,000 circulations, but it only cost us $1.67 a checkout on average. So that's been a really inexpensive way to provide a lot of materials to these people. As you know, we do give a lot of books away so people can have starter libraries at home to improve their literacy chances. A lot of these happen out at street fairs where we do marketing. Want to also maybe pull people into the library, and some of those are up on the screen. And the picture here is a new one that we did this year that's actually was in the library. It's Free Comic Book Day. So Dolly brought that one to us. She'd done it in another library. And you work with a local bookstore, so it also helps a local store. And we get these limited edition issues that you can only get here in San Francisco at a couple of comic book stores or at the libraries. So it was a really fun event, and a lot of people came down to get these. You can't actually purchase them. They're just available for free. So that's the end of my presentation. I'd be happy to answer questions later on.
Fascinating. Thank you, Shelley.
Thank you so much, Shelley. So much great information. But before we turn it over to commission discussion and questions, we want to open this up to those here in Correct for public comment. So public comment on this item, the discussion on the collection utilization trends is now open.
Okay, Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. First of all, thank you very much for the presentation, and there's a lot of material and a lot of footnotes, basically, OCOU, and so on and so forth. But what I want to say is I'm very concerned about the touting of electronics, which not everybody has access to, and especially the latest and the greatest and the latest and so on. Anybody can read a book, but whether people like the medium or not is not necessarily measured just by circulation. For example, when you had 0 print available for circulation, your print circulation went to 0 because all the libraries were closed during COVID. Well, that increased electronic access because if anybody wanted to, they better figure out how to get access if they didn't have it already. Unfortunately, I don't see, once again, a mention of COVID in the documentation. When a year or 2 or 3 or 5 later, people are going to look at this, there's no mention of COVID whatsoever. And it seems to me very clear from the trends that access to locations is key, and as you increased the hours of availability to patrons for coming to branches, your physical book collection got more actively used. I'm also concerned about the whole way that circulation is measured. If I come to the main library and I look at 10 books, home improvement books, and I decide this one, for various reasons I end up taking one home, I might have looked at 10 books, but I used them. Electronic books, or what I would call electronic texts, I can't do that. And even on the few where there's a sample feature, they give you what they want. Very often with nonfiction, I want to look at the table of contents or the index or see what their approach is to certain issues. I would need to check out, in a comparable situation, 10 ebooks just to see that I really am not interested in 9 and I'm really interested in 1. So the browsing feature of a book on the shelf gives usage that you're not measuring. But in ebooks, it's going to shoot up. I'm going to have taken out 10 books when I really was only interested in 1, and the comparable action in print, 1 circulation, or maybe none. There's also the publicity that you give. For example, Poverty by America is nonfiction that was right up there in the top 10. You gave that a lot of publicity. Availability and visibility. A lot of the books, maybe half of them, are on closed shelves. Nobody will ever see them unless they come in knowing to look for them. And so those are some of the biases in favor.
Thank you very much. Any further public comment on this agenda item? Seeing that there's no more public comment's now closed. Shelley, you might as well just come right up to the podium. I just want to, before we begin, thank you and your team for the incredible work that you do to serve the community and be so thoughtful and responsive. And then this report was just so informative. I'm sure my fellow commissioners have questions and comments, so I will open it up to them. Commissioner Mall.
Thank you for slicing and dicing all this information in such an interesting way. I have a few questions. The e-collection jury waiting room, could you just explain that a little?
Yeah, so we made posters and we put them up in the waiting rooms in the courthouses. We thought people would want to have an option to look at an ebook while they waited.
Right.
And it wasn't popular. We were surprised. And then one of my staffs had to go for jury duty. And apparently the internet access is really terrible there.
Oh.
So that's something we've learned, like before we decide we're going to go down that route, we better have somebody go out and try downloading an ebook on their app and see if it works. So that it's too bad because they were really enthusiastic. We came up with a really fun poster and they wanted to do it and they really encouraged people, but it just was hard to get access.
That's so interesting. I saw something similar in Palm Springs where they did it in hospital waiting rooms.
Yeah, we've thought about that too. I think that's a good idea. I'm kind of interested in doing a generic poster because we were putting a lot of time and energy making posters that were very specific to the location. So if we make a generic one, then we could just give it out to anywhere.
Yeah. And then what material do you use to pop up?
So it's the Boundless app. So it's
It's the what?
It's Boundless. It used to be Access 360. It's like Libby. It's just a different company. It's put out by Baker and Taylor. And the difference is we can purchase a collection that's dedicated to just the pop-up. So, for example, with the Chinese Groove, we had e-copies for the general for our patrons to check out. But we bought 50 copies for this to start with. And then people could see it on Muni, get on, check it out. And we watched every day and we're like, oh, we just ran out. Like, we're getting close. We're going to buy a few more copies. So that way it was always available to people who were using the pop-up. And they don't have to wait in line for holds. So it's a unique feature.
The thing I saw, there was an adult one and a children's one, so that there were children's books too that could.
Yeah, it also, the other benefit is if a book isn't checked out in Boundless, our regular collection, it also shows to the pop-up. So it's not just the collection we buy, but we buy extra copies for the popular titles. We went in and bought like anything that was hot and had holds. We had copies of those so people could find it on the shelves. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, I have another question. Wait, I still don't exactly understand it. So when you do the QR code, you have access to all these books? It's not just something that you're providing in terms of reading material?
Yeah, you can check them out without a library card, download them onto your device, so when you leave the area, you still have it, and it gives it to you for 3 weeks.
Okay, I think that's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's cool, and then at the end, you get a little email that says, oh, don't forget to go to the library and get a library card. So we're trying to use it as a marketing tool as well.
That could eliminate libraries.
No, because you only get it for 3 weeks. You get to check it out at the moment when you access the QR code, and then you have access for 3 weeks of the titles you check out. So if you want to get more, you have to come in and get a card.
You have to go.
It's a one little taste into all the wonderful books we can offer. And
Either
then you have
that
to
or
come
you
get a
have to
card.
go to the jail waiting room or the,
Or the- yeah,
hospital.
go back and go on a ferry again and scan the QR code again. Yeah,
Right.
yes.
Okay, well, that is
Easier to go get a library card. I think.
exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I had just something I wanted to point out. You had the 10 top ebooks and one was twice,
Yeah.
Fourth Wing. So one's
Yeah, do you see the
audio.
little headsets? I tried to make it obvious
okay.
by putting icons this year. So
Okay.
yeah, it's really interesting that title is so popular. Unknown author got on Book Talk. Some of them they're on Book Talk while they're writing the book and talking about it. Yeah. So it's interesting to me to hear the news about how they're trying to maybe ban TikTok from the U.S. And that'll take away a platform that new authors are using to promote their books. And you have to be on it to know, because sometimes they're really old books, like self-published books from 2019. All of a sudden we have 50 holds on them. We're like, what? And we have to run back and try to get them. And that's why those a lot of times end up in the e-circ, because frequently they're just not in print. We can't get the copies. But we can, we might have a few copies in-house, but we'll get the e-copies.
Thank you.
Commissioner Huang.
Thank you. Thank you, as always, for the report. And my caveat is all these questions are a form of love. So please bear with me. I just have a few questions. Some of them are tactical in nature, and then some of them I'm just trying to understand maybe some more trends that we haven't talked about during the course of the presentation. So if we go to the next page, this one right here, the slide that has the page number 13 on it. In the future, if we could show a full 13 months so we can get a full year over year. I think what I'm concerned about specifically is in months such as November of 2023, there was like a 10 to 11% increase in total inactives. I just want to make sure that we're adjusting for seasonality correctly. Looking at page, let's see, across 13 and 14 and 15. So just from a understanding the numbers perspective, between pages 14 and 15, looking in April of 2024, if you take the last bar on the right and add up those numbers, I get something along the range of 310,000 people between the SF and then Bay Area non-SF. Between 14 and 15 here. On page 13, I see something along the lines of 400,000 cardholders who are active. How do I make up the difference between 310,000 between pages 14, 15, and then the 400,000 here? I have two ideas for you. One, which is these are somehow California non-Bay Area people in there. And then two, there might be some other activity that's not circulation related that counts as activity on this page.
So I don't actually make these graphs. Randy does.
Okay.
I'm kind of looking at Michael and Maureen to see if they have input. I'm kind of guessing that there is a third, when you look at them in Tableau, there's a third tab, which is other, which is the rest of the state of California.
Gotcha.
That would definitely make up some of it. I do agree that there's probably some active patrons who may not have checked out any books. Recently, they might come in and use our buildings, read our newspapers, use our computers, and not actually check out an ebook. or a
Yeah.
printed book.
Gotcha.
So there's probably part of that. That would be my guesses, but as not somebody who made the chart, that's my
Totally fair.
educated guess.
Totally
Yeah.
fair. Yeah. I imagine wasn't sure because I wasn't sure beyond circulation where exactly do you end up showing your card. Probably is like the definition here that's missing.
Logging into computers, using the copier.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That
I
should
think
make
there's
up the
probably
rest of it.
other things, but I can't
Yeah.
think of them right now.
Tourists.
Okay, another question on this same set of, again, 14 and 15, and then looking back now on 10 as well. So looking at 10 for a second here, the physical between 2019 and 2024, the total circulation, let's call it, is roughly the same. It's like somewhere between 7.5 million to 8 million, roughly in the same neighborhood. E-material, as we were saying, has jumped from 3.8 to 6.5. Okay. What I'm trying to understand is when you do the same summation across 14 and 15 I'm looking at one population, which is anyone who has done any physical circulation. So adding up Omni and PCirc, and then another version where you do Omni and eCirc. So those two populations should give you the people who have checked out any physical versus any electronic. Certainly there's going to be an overlap. What I notice is that on physical, in April of 2024, that number is something like 107,000 patrons. At the start of the graph, that is something like 150,000. So that number has gone down in terms of the number of patrons who have checked out had any
think
physical circulation.
Michael, back on the,
Yeah, so between 14 and 15 here.
here.
Yeah, 14 and 15. If you add up the purple and the cyan.
It's fewer people who
Yep.
come in and use the physical collection, but they're heavy users. So a lot of it is kids. And when a kid comes in and they want readers or picture books, they're walking out with 20 or 30 of them.
Okay, so
Right.
this is
Yeah.
very interesting to me because it's not even that like they're heavier users than e-circulation, is that they've become heavier over the 5-year period.
Well, there's more, I think more people. Well, I guess, because I'm trying to, I didn't really, not having created these charts, I haven't
Yeah, totally. So
compared the
what I'm trying
numbers.
to, I'm explaining how I got there,
Yeah.
but like what I'm seeing is if circulation has remained the same, total checkouts has remained the same, but there's fewer people doing those same number of checkouts.
Yeah.
That means each person is checking out more on physical.
Yeah, there's less hold queues, so people can get access to material quicker.
Okay.
There's more formats, like all that MP3 embedded picture books, that's like a brand new thing, and those go out like hotcakes.
Okay.
So I'm sure parents are taking home 10 at a time. Readers, they come in. It's really, a lot of it is youth circulation, where
Gotcha.
the bulk is.
Okay.
And kids check out, they want all the Dog Man. So we've worked really hard to get a lot of replacement stuff for children's and make sure we have really healthy collections for kids. Because last year, you might remember, I said that was like what came back immediately after COVID. The parents said, you've had enough screen time, you must go back to physical form. And apparently I've heard SFUSD is like, you can't use Hoopla anymore. You must get a physical book and
Yeah.
read. So it's just, that's where it's going, and we're getting a lot of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I think maybe I would personally be interested in a more substantive sort of understanding of like what exactly that behavior is, because it feels like something we should support if we find something in there. Certainly, some of it will be circumstantial, which is, that's just the way it is. But like, I think to the extent that we find something interesting there, just investigating that particular metric would just be interesting to pull up and then see if there's more that we should be doing from a budgetary perspective to support that behavior moving forward.
Well, that's kind of where I was talking about with the nonfiction.
Yep.
That's an area we really looked at this year. So we used to get like 6 or 7 books, travel books of all the different, series. And people would put holds, and then we'd like, oh, that series popular, we'll get more.
Yep.
And people weren't putting holds anymore. So now we buy like 20 copies for the system. They're out there on the shelves. And that's where, like, we've just been doing that for about 6 months. And the circulation for travel went up a lot. So we're trying to find the different subject areas in nonfiction where that's happening. Because
Yeah.
You're going to put a hold on that new Smitten Kitchen cookbook because you're on Instagram and you follow Smitten Kitchen.
Yeah.
But you're never going to do it for the latest Chronicle 100 cookie recipes. But if you see it on the shelf, and you want to bake cookies, you're going to go, hey, I'll get that.
Yeah.
A nice knitting book. You're not going to think of these books and put holds on
Yeah.
them. But if we have them out there on the shelves. So that's where I think we have to work on with adult nonfiction is figure out what people want.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a little hard because they don't do the ebook. And I was true. I went to a branch. I was going to Portugal. They didn't have a book on Portugal. I went and found some guy walking around Portugal for a YouTube video. That's what I did. And then I got the top 10 things to do in Portugal. I did put a hold. And then I talked to Loretta about buying more travel books. So I could do that. But you kind of have to fall into those areas.
Yeah.
And so we work with our branch managers. We did a survey last year of our branch staff to ask them what subject areas are people asking you about.
Mm-hmm.
But there's those people who aren't coming back in.
Yep.
We still don't have, some people aren't comfortable being in public spaces. And even some of our busiest branches, like Ortega, I went there one Saturday and it was pretty quiet. And people were really spread out. They were in the meeting room. So some of that is still just going to take some time, people
Yep.
feeling like they can come back and hang out in a public space.
Yeah. That
But
makes
we
sense.
need to know what they want to see when they come in.
Yep. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, and just as a follow-up to that, the other side of this, like again, looking at that same comparison, but for electronic this time, you have essentially a doubling of the patrons, again, looking at the figures on 14 and 15, from roughly 125,000 patrons to roughly 250,000 patrons. Obviously, like, both numbers go in the same direction, right? Like, number of patrons has like doubled, and then the circulation has not quite doubled, but still gone up a lot. I imagine that the explanation is like pretty simple, which is like by providing more electronic access, you're also you're reaching more people, including people who are more casual users, meaning they
Yeah.
might be checking out like
Yeah.
at less frequent of rates.
Yeah.
And in fact, probably like as you project forward, the more people you attract, the more casual they're going to be in terms of their checkout pattern. So
Yeah.
anyways, just to put that out there and to finish the thought. Going to page 20, which is the cost comparison. So one of the things that I thought was interesting that you said, which is for print books, you said there is the additional overhead of like tagging the book and just
Yeah.
like a little bit more work you have to do between getting the book in and then getting it on the shelf.
Right.
Can you tell us more about what's actually there and how much time it might take per copy, let's say?
Well, it depends on how we buy the items. Some items we get just plain book, and we get a really 45% off, so it's pretty cheap. But then we have to do all the cataloging and all the processing. And that includes putting a barcode on the front, the branch label on the front, printing out the spine label after we've cataloged it and added it to the side. We actually have a little rubber stamp that we can press our name on the top of the spine so to identify San Francisco Public Library. And for anything that has a dust cover, we have to put Mylar on it. And so you put the plastic thing on, then you put it around the book, and you have to tape it onto the book. And if we bought 175 copies, that's a lot of work. So if we're getting 6 copies, we often buy them partially processed. So that way, and the RFID tag, I forgot about that. So that goes on the back of the book. So if we buy them partially processed from our vendor, they put a barcode on the front, they stamp the book SFPL, and they put the RFID tag in the back, which helps us a lot. And then when they come in, I think they also put the branch label on the front. They come in, all we have to do is put the spine label on, put a cover over the spine label, and send it off to the branches after we finish cataloging it. So it's quicker. So it's every kind of book takes more staff time, and that's money spent. I mean, that's one thing people don't think about when they compare print books to ebooks, is it does take staff time.
I'm trying to understand how much more. So when it comes to this time, are we saying each copy may take an extra 15 minutes to process or 30 minutes or an hour or more than that somehow? Like, do you have a rough neighborhood to put us in when we think about this extra time? Like, roughly how much would that be?
So we didn't do it for breaking it down by things that come in partially processed, but a fully, like, we have to catalog the whole thing and fully process it, and it has a Mylar. We estimate it costs us about $45.
Wow.
So
Okay.
it's a lot of staff time to do that. It take, and usually those titles are already cataloged, so we're just pulling a MARC record over, assigning a local call number.
So $45 per copy.
Well, for a title, because it's, if we buy, 20 copies, we only have to label the other 19 copies. The cataloging is for one book. So that's like if we
Gotcha,
got a
gotcha.
single book.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah,
For
so
a
then, of
title,
course,
okay.
the more copies we get, the more time it will take to physically put the labels on. Mylaring takes a lot of time. I would say it takes at least 5 to 10 minutes to do.
Gotcha.
Maybe 5 minutes to do a book. Depends on the book and how easy it is to get it in there.
Yeah.
Ask a follow-up question.
Yes, yeah.
Why don't the publishers sell it with the Mylar on it?
That's a good question. We can buy it from vendors, though. We do get shelf-ready, like our Lucky Day books, they come shelf-ready. We get less of a discount, though, because the vendor's going to charge us. So our vendors charge us anywhere from $2.75 to $7 for processing, if you want to take their cost. But they're in a factory and have things automated. So if we get them shelf-ready, then we get them that way. And the publishers send them to the vendors, usually a week or two before street date, so they have time to get them all processed for the public libraries. And then we get them around street date, ready to go out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
No,
it's very complicated. Everything DVDs are really time-consuming for us. So especially if we have to break it down and put it in a case. Those K-pop things come in cardboard boxes. We have to make covers for them, cut them all up, put them in. It can take a good hour to get them into the case.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy answer. It depends on what we're doing.
Totally. Maybe this is a request for Randy, but I think like what we're driving to with this is more on like it's the cost per checkout, but like also fully loaded, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
Like for print, this is all the cataloging, all
Yeah.
the Mylar and all that kind of stuff. For the electronic material, it includes all of the sort of like time, like clicking buttons to make sure that the thing is like live and all that kind of stuff. So to whatever extent that all of those like notable chunky costs, we can get them baked down to a per checkout number, that I think
Be
ultimately
interesting.
becomes
Yeah. We
like,
haven't done it recently, so it'd be an interesting look at it.
great, yes,
expenses.
because I think we can make a guess, right? Like for Hillbilly Elegy Overdrive, it's like you take $24.91 divided by 26, like, well, like did all 26 get used actually, and whatever. But like, so just having that ultimately, I think will be useful. And I think just to provide context on like how I'm thinking about this, it's not necessarily to inform changes on like how we allocate. I'm not necessarily saying that like, oh, like lower cost per checkout sources deserve more funding or whatever it is. It's just more of like, as we understand increases in the collections budget over time, like we can understand roughly how that actually lands. Like, for example, as we increase collections, like we also have to, for example, in the case of print, we also have to make sure that we are understanding that there's impact on the actual like human time. And it's not like a readily just like you can scale to infinity with
Yeah.
no additional cost, right? So
exactly.
just having that like, for us perhaps like a better grounded understanding of where the actual cost lands is
Yeah.
probably like important thing for us.
And we could do it by different types of materials, because something that we have to catalog in a language other than English, that's where a lot of our staff time goes. We have one of the best Chinese catalogers in the nation, and Anzong does a lot of work for everybody in the U.S. And that time he spends is not only benefiting our residents, but it is costly. We have to have somebody who's fluent and can type in Chinese, and both in traditional and simplified characters. So.
Can I just ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, I'm done with my questions
No,
about
but
it.
I wanted
Thank
to
you.
ask you I wanted to ask you a follow-up question. I mean, that's all and good, but this has been going on forever.
Right.
What will that information tell us?
At the end of the day,
Because it's a lot of work for them to do the analysis. So I'm just curious, like, well, what are we going to learn from that?
at the end of the day, for me, it's an understanding of when we actually like put the dollars down, what happens? You know what I mean? Like it's one of these things where it's like if you just say that your e-collections budget is going up another 20%. There was a string of years where it was
Yep.
going up like 20% year over year over year over year. What's actually happening with that, right? And this is great, but then just having an understanding of like again, like when we do these comparisons across locations, for example, with the jails, compared to all of these, like eventually that all has to net out at some number that's easily understandable on like, is this quote unquote cost efficient compared to other sources? Now, again, whether or not you act on that is a different thing, because I think like we'll ultimately make our choices depending on just what new populations we're serving. Can we encourage new behaviors? Can we encourage like literacy in new ways? Those are our guiding metrics, right? But from a cost perspective, like my only concern is like, especially as it relates to electronic, we are at a phase now where, again, after this like huge expansion of electronics collection budget over the last 5 to 7 years, at least in the time that I've been here, like sort of watching this, right? Like the budget has absolutely exploded, right? At some point, I need an understanding of just like there has to be some rigor behind that, and I just want to know that we're not continuing to explode in an exponential curve without some like checks on where it's actually going.
So I think one thing to keep in mind, though, is a lot of times when we ask for budget increases for e-collections, it's not just increase in interest, it's also new platforms. So over the past 10 years, we added Hoopla, we added Flipster, which is for magazines. We added all these new things, and Baybeats is the newest one. It cost, I think, it costs us about $50,000 a year. It's not super expensive. It's been wonderful for programming, and we got a lot of circulation out of it the first year. But that first setup cost is going to cost us. And so that's something, it's new. It's a brand new platform, it's new materials. And it's the same for those book with MP3 players. We spent a lot of money creating that collection. And with vinyl, you have to put a big chunk. We've had savings in our physical collection because of people moving over to all those new books that are now available immediately in ebook, that we can spend it on new things. But you're right, I mean, the ebook, those Macmillan books are really pricey. And we're gonna have to spend $60 a year, I mean, every 2 years, if we wanna keep that book in the collection. And we don't really have a choice in that, that's out of our control.
The broader macro thing, just to fill in more context, is this idea of like, again, as we are expanding our reach and electronic circulations continue to increase, if it is true that like as we continue to reach more patrons, they are going to become more casual in terms of their checkout behavior. At some point, there is some like intersection of like how much we're willing to spend on the collections budget to serve those people versus like how many people we're actually serving, right? For example, if the marginal patron needs to see 1 million titles on the electronics budget, and literally we need to spend like $60 million, like 1 million titles times 60, for that person to become interested in checking out one title. I think like that's obviously an extreme impossible case, but like nobody would like spend that $60 million, right? Like love the person, but like that's not gonna happen. At some point, it's just like as like the internet is like a really interesting thing because it can just sort of like expand infinitely in terms of information transfer. What I just want to make sure is like as we like have reached this sort of like and past this initial acceleration of the electronics budget, that we're actually conscious of like what the controls are here to make sure we're spending wisely on reaching the new patrons coming in.
So we do that. We, there's a lot of e-audiobooks that are extremely expensive, like $250 to get one copy.
Insane to me.
Right. So we're just acknowledging we can't buy them all. We especially can't buy them all on Libby. So we're just going to wait if we know if there's a lot of smaller publishers that's an only 90-day embargo for Hoopla. And we're like, we're going to wait. We're just not going to see it in Libby.
Great.
People will have to go to Hoopla.
Yeah.
Because it's going to cost us $3 to check out, and we might only get 3 checkouts.
Yeah.
So we're really focusing on getting the super high demand stuff in Libby that's reasonably priced. And then we're going to use Hoopla as our backup plan for the longer tail titles. And that's what its role is. And that's why they have that wonderful method. And then, as they add those binge passes, I love the one that's on manga that they just it's like, oh, great. We don't have to buy all those. One of our biggest patron asks is like, please buy this entire series of this really old manga series I just found. So now they'll be able to find it on Hoopla. We already don't buy it for them. It's like, I'm sorry, it's 10 years old. It's likely not in print. And you probably would be, we don't say you're going to be the only person to check it out, but we know, even if we could get it, it's not going to get much circulation, so we don't buy them. But we now know we can get them on Hoopla, so that's great. It's an alternative. And we also have Links Plus, which allows those titles from other libraries that might have more interest in that area and have spent the money. But we do know that in the Bay Area, we have the best holds to holding ratios for ebooks compared to our East Bay friends and South Bay friends. And that's had a financial impact on us. So we've kind of decided, well, the more expensive the title, maybe we won't do 3:1. We'll have to pull it up a little bit. And Overdrive, who does Libby, they're working on possibly adding to their platform a way for San Francisco residents to have a smaller holds to holding ratio to people who live outside of our city. So we can okay, we're still going to let the rest of the state of California have access, but they're going to have to wait longer to our local residents. And some cities have chosen, like LA, doesn't allow LA County people to get access to their e-collections because they can't afford it. It's too many people, it's too much money, and they limit it to just LA residents. So that's something we luckily don't have to make that hard decision because we have a lot of lower income communities around us, and our role is really to provide our resources to the greater Bay Area. So.
And just one quick personal story here. I use audiobooks, and I only check out one at a time because you only get them for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And they're not renewable. So I may seem like a casual user, but I'm not, because I can come into the library and check out 100 books. But with audiobooks, I don't want to check out too many because I can't.
Gotta get it
I
through.
got, it's like a game I play. Okay, I'll get this one, and then I'll wait for this one, and then I'll wait for that one. So it's very different with you're playing a certain game.
I'm an audiobook user too, and it takes me a long time to get through those. Some of them are like 26 hours.
I know, and so it's just, and you can't renew them.
And I can read them faster. So if I want to get something on hold, I tend to do the print, and then I do audiobook for things that
Okay,
are
we're going to
available.
continue. Are you finished?
Yes.
I don't mean that anyway.
Yes, I am.
Excellent
Thank you.
question.
Thank you.
Okay, now to my left, do any of the commissioners, would they have questions or comments?
I just very quickly just want to add on something Shelley got towards the very end of her last comments, is that there is a particular role that the San Francisco Public Library plays in the information literacy, as well as information availability, as well as freedom to read movement, particularly at a time like this when there are municipalities as well as state governments that are taking, school districts across the United States that have taken measures to prevent many books and many titles at full accessibility. And so, I think that we have to continue to stay on that, on the hill, on the building that's on the hill, if you will, the city on the hill, that people around California and the United States know that they can depend on the city and county of San Francisco through its public library services for access to materials. And until we get through and past and hopefully beyond a time such as what we're having right now, we have to continue that access full-heartedly. So I just think that I think this is a good conversation, and I also say that in the larger context of things, when so many people, literally children and adults, are not being able to get access to books, actually not that far from here, just in Central California, where I spend a lot of time in, you'd be surprised what's happening in some of those Central Valley communities with school boards. So it's not just outside, it's not only outside of California, it's happening actually inside of California. We have to do everything we can to maintain access, particularly for children and youth and people who are marginalized, particularly our LGBTQ youth.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's very, very important. Commissioner Lopez.
Thank you so much for the report. I'm not going to be as intense because there's a lot of questions that I have now after the conversation, but I think I'll talk to Pete after. I just want to say that I'm really excited about the book stops and how we're increasing those. So that, to me, it's just bringing the library closer to people. So that is always exciting to me, knowing that, again, we're creating accessibility and reaching out to those communities. Also, I just want to say, I think that in terms of starter libraries, I just love this part of how we are contributing to develop the passion for reading. I've been to some of these events, and the reason that I attend is because I see how the families, how the parents, how the kids get so excited. And it just like it brightens their day, and we're starting something. So I just wanted to say thank you. I know there's things are changing, trends are changing, and they will continue to change. So thank you for everything you do and the report for someone who recently got into like ebooks. That's because of the press. I, you know, just think about the privilege that you have and the resources that we have. And, you know, as an educator, if I don't find a book anywhere, I have my school library too. So, so it's something that is changing people, you know, one book at a time.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Oh, thanks so much.
I have a couple of really quick questions. The kiosks, I heard somewhere, I was somewhere, and somebody mentioned, oh, yeah, they're not working on Treasure Island. What does success look like for the kiosks? Because I love the concept of them going to neighborhoods, and I was kind of surprised that this person said it, and I'm like, I've heard, of course I said, well, I've heard differently, because I didn't want that to be on the world, but what does success look like?
We're still kind of looking at that. I'm not sure if they mean with Treasure Island, we've had a lot of connectivity issues. Treasure Island loses internet access a lot, which is not good for the residents out there either. But it means people can't actually check out books from our kiosk if we're not connected to the internet. So it could be that they're referring to. The circulation is low, but there's very few people who live on that island. And I'm pretty sure that the people who live in the new condos up on the hill that has a private library in the building are not coming down to that local grocery store and using that kiosk. So we're serving a very tiny population of people. We are still playing with what's going to get checked out. We thought a lot of new fiction would be of interest, but it turns out cookbooks are the biggest hit, and other kind of like family self-help things. So we're shifting what we buy for these collections. And children's books, especially graphic novels, are circulating like hotcakes.
Great.
Yeah, in Hunter's View, it's very low circulation, but it's, you know, in a housing community, so it's just that community that has access. So we didn't ever expect much circulation there because it's serving a very special group of people. Dog Patch, I think, is a really different use for a kiosk. It's going to be in a residential community center. People will be coming in and using the space. And so we're adding more popular adult titles. We'll see how those go. Sunnydale, they specifically asked for lots of cookbooks because they're going to have 2 childcare centers, an after-school program, and a preschool in the building. It's also a community center, and they have a full teaching kitchen there. So, and the kiosk is right next to the teaching kitchen. So I expect if we do a lot of cookbooks in there for all ages, that people, as they leave those programs, will go, oh, I'm going to check this out. And so we're getting a lot of basic recipes, family meals, one-sheet pans, healthy cooking, those kinds of things.
That's great.
Yeah, so it really, I think each neighborhood, we have to kind of figure out what's going to circulate. We didn't originally put Chinese in at Hunter's View, but then they asked for it. So we've been adding more of that. Yeah.
That's great.
So it's, you know, we have to see who comes and what they're going to be used for.
Great. You mentioned very early on in your report that 55% of the residents have library cards. And
Of San Francisco,
Of San Francisco residents have. I'm wondering if there's a way to determine what percentage of households have a library card.
That's a good question.
Because it could be that we have a higher percentage of households. I'm just trying to think about how do we measure how library cards are being used.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question, because it could be that a parent might have a card. And now that we allow 100 checkouts, before when we only, had very limited number of checkouts, especially with DVDs, you could only take 6 in
Right.
the late 90s. Every parent would have a card, like for every member of their household, so they could get them, lots of them, so. Oh, Michael might have an answer on that.
So I made a note that we need to invite Randy the next time we have this presentation. And I had the luxury of picking Randy's brain a little deeper on this slide.
Yeah.
So in actuality, 367,000 of these residents of the 441,000, 367,000 are actually San Francisco residents. So we have 45% of 809,000 people as active users of the San Francisco Public Library. If you look broader, about 60,000 Bay Area residents are taking advantage of our robust collections. And then there's about 10,000 California residents that are probably Central Valley or Southern California. So we are serving a very broad constituency beyond the city and county of San Francisco. And while I have the floor, I do want to just highlight, this got kind of just breezed over, but last year we set a new record for circulation. We eclipsed 12 million for the first time ever. Well, we just broke that record again, and I just want to acknowledge Shelley Cocking and her leadership and the work that her team does. Yes. So I'm not going to embarrass her too much, but as a member of the executive leadership team, she has the longest tenure as a San Francisco Public Library employee, and we are so fortunate to have her expertise. She has both the right and the left brain, her mastery of our database, Sierra, but also the collection development expertise, her mastery of the marketplace and the Wild West that it is. I just want you all to know how fortunate we are to have her as a part of our team.
Well, I think we all agree, but I would like to know, like, what do we aim? We have 45% of the population or 55%. What are we aiming for? And
Well,
that's why I think-
100%.
I know,
but
but
I'll give you the industry median
That's
is,
what I was.
is
My next
29%.
question is 29%.
So we are blowing that out of the water already.
Yeah.
But and the other measure that I always talk about is the level of satisfaction that our patrons have.
Yeah.
I've seen another slide deck that will be coming to you from Randy. So our foot traffic year over year was up 17.5%. So we had 600,000 more visits this past fiscal year than the prior.
Mm-hmm.
And Shelley's team is a big part of that. People are coming back to access our physical collections. And our patron satisfaction in this future slide deck, you'll see, is very high.
Well, that's no surprise. I really think that we're clearly the gold standard in the country for what we do. And I think that's really because of you and your team, and also the entire library team that supports what you do. From everybody putting the miler things on the books that we now understand is like, it takes forever, or the DVD boxes or whatever. Just want to say thank you for being such an incredibly passionate leader, but also using the analytics to ensure that we're doing the best we can each and every day with the dollars that we're given from the citizens to really make this library as great as it is. So thank you.
Well, and I do want to thank you guys for approving constant budget increases. I've never had one turned down, so thank you so much. And the residents for the, voting to continually support us since 1994, I think was the first vote. We're really lucky. I have more money than New York City. I feel bad at conferences when people talk about
Don't ever feel bad. Don't ever feel bad. Okay, Commissioner Mall wants to say something.
I just wanted to say one thing. When you were talking, I was thinking your next career you could be just a top stockbroker because you really have a sense of your different communities, the different populations, what's successful, how to make the money go further, how to see winners ahead of time.
Well, don't give her any
don't
ideas.
retire,
Stop
but-
it. Thank you. But I do have to. We're going to move on, and we just want to say thank you. And this was a great presentation. And we are now moving on to item number 4, which is a presentation on information technology here at the San Francisco Public Library.
Thank you, President Wolf. Our next report is indeed a information technology report from our acting CIO, Jason Blandon. Jason, take it away.
Hey, hard act to follow, Shelley. Thanks. All right. Hello, everybody, or good evening. My name is Jason Blandon. Like Michael just said, I'm here to give you a report on IT, on our projects, our progress so far, and our future initiatives. First off, I wanted to do a reintroduction of our team. And I say reintroduction because you probably know most of them right now. So I'll start off with the frontline staff, which is the desktop help desk, which are basically our boots on the ground, our frontline staff. And some of them are here today in the back row. Hello. They're the ones that do the break fix, fix the computers, make sure the kiosks are set up, things like that. Next, we have our backbone, which is a server group. What they do is they manage the server and all the backups of all of our data. Next up, we have our network and cybersecurity team, which is our shield. They're the ones that ensure that we have a standard and stable network connection, as well as ensuring that our data is secure from cybersecurity sense. After that, we have the heart of our operation, which is the integrated library system. This is the database that houses all library card information and library users. Next, we have media services, our producers. They're the ones that do all the AV presentations for programs and things like that. And I think you know most of them because from the library commissions that have been here. So they're here in attendance as well. We have our innovators, which is web services. Web services works, of course, on our website, but they are currently spearheading a SharePoint migration. Next, we have our providers. Procurement. Procurement takes over all of the contracts for software, hardware, and any kind of services related to IT. And finally, we have our organizers, which is project management, and what they do is they keep our IT projects on track and on time. All right. Next, I'd like to highlight some key achievements for the last 2 years. First off, Correct upgrades, or what we like to call a Band-Aid. So in the Correct's existence, this last, I think, 25 plus years, there hasn't really been a big major technological upgrade here until Sam's team came along and said we needed to upgrade a few things. So this is why we call it a Band-Aid. It's just a topical update, but we did an update on the audio, visual, and touchpad connections here in the Correct. Along with that was a standout app that we added to it called Listen Everywhere. Listen Everywhere is an assistive listening service that you can use on an app on your smartphone, and that's available now. All right. Next, we work with the Office of Civil Rights to bring our SFPL website up into ADA compliance. All right. That was a long, grueling 3 months working with them, but now we are fully compliant ADA-wise. We've been historically a Windows shop, so this is a bit of a departure that now we're adopting Chromebook and Mac. For Chromebooks, we've added 300 Chromebooks to most of our locations, mainly the branches, as training and program laptops. And for Mac, what we've done is we've added support for both the public and the staff. So that's something new for us as well. Then we have 30 locations with 10 gigabyte connections. That just means that is a fast, stable, high-speed, reliable connection for both staff and the public. What that means also is it's resilient, is that if we have multiple network backups, that won't cause any issues. if there is some sort of outage. After that, we've worked with our finance department to talk about procurement centralization. IT has partnered with finance, and being the cheese balls that we are, we named it Finito, right? Which stands for Finance IT Optimization, right? Cheese balls. What that does is we're tackling the stringent cybersecurity procurement guidelines that's been set down by the Office of Controller's Administration and Department of Technology. So it's something that Mike and I have been working with very closely on. And I wanted to bring up that we've had a stronger relationship with the Department of Technology, especially their new CIO, Michael Maxman, and we've been partnering with them on a few initiatives that I'll talk about a little later on in these slides. Next up is cybersecurity, and I wanted to bring this to everyone's attention because recently there have been some attacks. In the past year, Seattle Public Library and Solano Public Library have been attacked that resulted in months-long disruption of services. Schools and libraries continue to be targeted, and so we take cybersecurity very seriously, and these are some of the steps that we've taken to protect our network and our information here. The first one is SharePoint migration. I'll be talking about this quite a bit. We're transitioning over from a traditional file server to SharePoint, and this is going to offer us enhanced security and multiple layers of protection. Next up, we ordered a penetration test. Now, what a penetration test, it's also referred to as a pen test. What a penetration test is a thorough attack of our network and website to identify and mitigate any vulnerabilities that there might be able to find. It's scheduled for this October, and as of this writing this note, and as of today, it's been pushed back to December, right? But once that pen test goes through, we'll be able to identify some of the issues that we have and patch them up, making us much more resilient. Next up, we have virtual server migration. We've moved away from physical servers to virtual servers. That makes it much easier to manage and back up any issues that might happen with a server that might be attacked, compromised, or in any way inoperable. We could restore quickly from a backup and our data would be secure. And then finally, we've started working on an IT continuity plan. We're updating this plan to ensure uninterrupted operations in case of any major event. Now I'd like to shift our focus to the future and highlight some of the exciting projects we're currently working on. Like Shelley alluded to, the first thing that we've worked on is the self-service kiosks known as the book stops. It's a collaboration between the different departments, and it's my team that has configured it. And like Shelley said, the latest one that we've deployed was Dogpatch. Now, I know that there's been some network issues with Treasure Island. I think Dogpatch will have a better idea of the usage because we've just installed Google Fiber. Well, we haven't, Google Fiber did, to the nonprofit partner. So it'll be a much stable and faster connection. And like I said, SharePoint migration, I'll be talking about this a bit. We're transitioning all library staff to SharePoint. And part of that, and I'll pop over to the next couple subjects here, right? Part of that is including we're digitizing forms, automating workflows, and promoting a greener organization. Right. As I said earlier with the Correct Band-Aid, we did a very topical, easy fix for audiovisual and a couple apps. What we're talking about now is a full redo of the entire Correct, an overhaul. We're actively discussing how to bring the technology in the Correct up to modern standards and make it more accessible and have a lot more options available for our community for programs and events that happen here. Now I'll talk about a little bit about our proof of concepts. We did this on a smaller scale so we could test and make sure that it's something viable. First up was digital signage. We're implementing digital signage solutions by the year end, and we've partnered up with the Asian Art Museum, focusing on their solution. They've already run through that gauntlet. They've used a lot of services that don't work. They found a very simple, easy to manage solution that we'll adopt working with them. A virtual desktop infrastructure. This is one that is referred to in some circles as the holy grail for public libraries. What virtual desktop infrastructure is a central point, like a master server, that the other computers are tied into as a terminal. There's one point, that server, that you can update, you can add software programs, you can add shortcuts, things like that for any type of changes, and it'll reflect on the other computers that come in and log in as terminals. We're going to use our 6th floor training lab as a proof of concept and see how that works. If that works and it's manageable, we plan on scaling it out to a larger scale. And if we can, it would be great to actually reuse what we have existing in the public and have them all managed from one central server. And it would reduce the cost of how much we do, or how much we pay for buying new computers for break fix, things like that, because we'll just have terminals going into one server. And the last thing is we're exploring AI possibilities. Once again, we've partnered with Department of Technology. We're exploring an AI tool called Microsoft Copilot at the moment. And we're staying informed, of course, with the latest developments. Also having conversations with COIT, the Committee on Information Technology, on how we can utilize AI in the public library. So those will be on some ongoing conversations that are going. Now, I saved the feel-good story for last. So last year, I presented to the Library Commission on an ongoing collaboration between the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community and SFPL IT. That collaboration was taking surplus or e-wasted computers and getting them into the hands of nonprofit partners through the Mayor's Office of Housing and Community Development. To this date, we have refurbished and donated 820 computers to these nonprofits here. And last, I'll leave with a couple photos that I really liked here. We have here a Chinatown Community Development Center, which used all of our old equipment to create their own computer lab. Using our old equipment, they taught their community members how to access San Francisco Public Library resources, like Hoopla, like e-learning, things like that. So I like this. It's a very redundant way of showing that our equipment is still supporting the community by making sure that they can use San Francisco Public Library resources. That's it for me. Thank you very much, and happy to answer any questions afterwards.
Thank you, Jason.
All right.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Before we bring it to the commission for discussion, I'm going to open it up for public comment. Public comment is now open here in Corrette.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. There's quite a lot to discuss with respect to technology, and thank you very much for the report. I'm sorry to say that there's almost nothing in this report that I can see affecting directly the patrons or how it would affect patrons or improve things or, for that matter, keep things running. Now, of course, there's a whole lot of back office stuff that goes on. Muni might be talking about their mechanics and their drivers and their scheduling and so on. But hopefully in a report about Muni, we would talk about on-time performance and availability and regularity and a bunch of things that have an effect directly on the users, the riders. And I don't see that here. What for are we going to investigate AI? What problems is it going to solve, or does it have the promise of improving? One of the things that we talked about at the last item is something that concerns me, and that is I'm wondering that when we have electronic books, we don't just have them, but we have a whole provider. And when I look, for example, and find only electronic title and a waiting list or no, either a way, well, there's accessibility, but there's also what happens on the site. When I look at an electronic title that's available, but there's nothing in print, that concerns me. Are we spending the money on electronic versus print without having free and equal access to those who want or prefer or don't have access to the electronic? The electronic platforms typically advertise and they trap you in their site. Is there any way to stop that? In other words, you go into the electronic book, then they say people who like this also like this, and now they're selling you. Every one of them is things on their own platform, and you can borrow it right away. We don't do that on the print catalog, not the traditional one. And is there any way then also to enable people to get back to the catalog where they started before they got into the ebook version? I'm concerned about really poor print copiers, printers and copiers. The 11 by 17 gone is a size that we used to have, and it's now a degraded service that also lacks privacy. We need a privacy audit. When we talk about cookies getting on the site, what for? Why? And who are you explaining this to for people who don't?
Thank you. Any further public comment? Seeing there's no further public comment is now closed, and I now turn it over to discussion on information technology from the commissioners. Do any of the commissioners have questions or comments? Jason, that was a really incredibly thorough report, and really appreciate all the behind-the-scenes things you do that that really make this whole institution hum.
Oh, I don't do anything. It's these guys.
Well, to you and your team for letting things hum in the way they do and keep things going, and keeping an eye out for all the challenges that technology faces each and every day. So thank you for that. Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
You mentioned both Seattle, I remember reading about that, and Solano. Can you share any further reflections on what you see, particularly as leading a unit within a major municipal department, which is the library? What are the threats that you're seeing, particularly, as it relates to libraries, but just municipalities in general, or any type of municipal department, library just being one of any?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I will find out more about Seattle. Charles Weasley is the CIO at Seattle, and he's become a friend. We have a meeting in 2 weeks, and we've invited our city information security officer to join that meeting. So we're going to find out how their attack happened and what the remediation efforts were. Now, for us, I don't want to go too much in detail, because don't want to give away the company secrets here, and they're like, oh, that's how we can attack them, But it's just constant vigilance, and it's basically one of the things that we've done is we've set up a standing meeting every Friday, and we just talk about cybersecurity, and we get a report from all the departments all the units that I just talked about in IT, just what's going on with you, and we've been able to find a few attacks. There was something on the website that looked a little fishy. We were able to isolate it first off and then figured out what it was, quarantine it, and then just get rid of it. And then we figured out what the patch was. It's just basically taking security seriously. And it's being vigilant. It's making sure that your team takes the security. It's making sure that the leadership takes it seriously. Because for some reason, and I'm not going to get into politics, but for some reason, schools and libraries are being targeted and they're being attacked on just a grand scale at this point. So we just have to stay on top of it and make sure that we are keeping up with the industry standards, which we are. Yeah.
Commissioner Lopez?
Hi, Jason. I have a question, and that was because I was just curious of something that you said. With the penetration tests, who's doing the tests?
We've partnered up with the controller's office.
Okay.
So also another city department. The controller's office, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh,
Go
so
ahead.
the controller's office and our IT department have been working closely. I ordered this about 2 years ago, and we've been working closely to make sure that we're set up for the penetration test. So it's more of a scheduling issue of why it was pushed back to December, but that's what we're working with.
So I think I should have said, what is a penetration test? Like,
okay.
do other people try to get into our system? I'm very not tech savvy, but
No worries. Let's see if I could explain this. So there's different types of penetration tests. There's a white box, a black box, and a gray box, right? We're doing something called white box, which means we're partnering up with an outside entity, giving them the information of our network so they know exactly what to attack. A black box means you just go in blind. Gray box is a mix of both, right? What a penetration test does is they go in and they basically we're hiring hackers. And think of it that way, hiring hackers to see if they could hack our website, hack our network, get into it, get information from us, and see where we're vulnerable. Except we're hiring the hackers, so we figure out, they'll tell us. It's not like they'll be like, oh, yeah, I hacked you. Have fun trying to figure that out, right? No, they're hiring them, so they'll show us exactly where we need to patch our vulnerabilities.
thank you. I was just curious. The other thing that I wanted to say, I really excited about that in some ways you are reducing the e-waste by refurnishing all those computers and giving them a second life. And I think that that's great. That's another way that the library is not also reaching out to communities that might not have access to, but that we're saving the planet somehow. So,
No,
thank you.
Thank you for that. I love that collaboration that we have, and it's going to grow, not just with computers, but there's other services and there's other ideas. Hopefully, I could report on later on that will grow out of that collaboration. We're chomping at the bit to see what else we can do.
Well, thank you again to you and your team for such an extraordinary reach and depth of what you do and keeping things humming and going in a way so that everything keeps going. And thank you to the team here in Corrette for making these monthly meetings work so smoothly. We really appreciate their dedication and efforts, so thank you.
Appreciate that a lot. Thank you. Thank you all.
We will now move on to item number 5, which is discussion on the city librarian's report, and I turn it over to our fabulous city librarian, Michael Lambert.
Thank you, President Wolf. We have a few reports this evening, and I'm pleased to introduce our first presenter, our CFO, Mike Fernandez, with a budget update on our FY 25-26 budget.
All right. So, good evening, Commissioners, President Wolf, Vice President Wong. Today, I'm pleased to bring you an update of what happened this budget cycle and how it all shook out. Today, we'll be going over an overview of where our budget landed, going over the calendar, our sources and uses. Just to summarize for you, a little refresher of what you had approved last February. I'll note some key changes and go over the Friends annual grant. So let's get started. All right, so some context of what we're walking into. Our revenues, you've heard me say this before, our revenues are lagging behind inflation. Other departments had to cut this cycle, some of them pretty deeply. We were insulated. Thank you very much. It's really a reflection of everyone here's hard work, all of you all, management, the staff. We are the most loved department, and that played a lot into the approval of the Library Preservation Fund baseline, which we're embarking in this beginning of the 25 years. So some changes since we were last here. As you can see, the fiscal year 25 number of $187 million is a touch up from the 186 you all approved in February. But that is down significantly from fiscal year 24, which was $199 million that was approved last year. This really reflects the rising cost from the new labor MOUs, which increased the wages of staff by a minimum of 13% over the next 3 years. We did carry all the proposals that you had approved in the areas of literacy, learning, outreach, and access, and the one-time investments to ensure that we do have the resources on hand to start the strategic planning implementation. This approved budget will allow us to empower individuals through maintaining our presence in communities beyond our branches with the replacement of 2 of our oldest bookmobiles. We're enhancing our outreach, especially to those who speak a language other than English, with $200,000 in additional outreach. We're enriching the community through continuing our commitment to the Ocean View branch with another $4.8 million installment. It also allows for refreshing IT and building equipment that are reached the end of their useful life. And responding to communities with a facilities master plan to create spaces in the vision that they help shape. We're transforming lives through the $300,000 investment in the collections budget to extend our successful partnership with Hoopla, to extend our platform to help to those incarcerated in our local jails, and also investing $250,000 in safety consultants to train and continue to make our libraries safe and inviting spaces for all. Here we are at the end of our calendar. We're at the end of this cycle, right here at the end. As you can see, we kick off in October. What that means for staff is we've already started. We started the budget process already internally, planning for this October kickoff. So we really never stop. That's where we are now. For our sources, you could approximately half of our, or 99% of our budget comes from the Library Preservation Fund, of which half is property tax. A little less than 1% of the budget comes from other sources. Now, I do have to point out for fiscal year 24, that $199 million figure may differ slightly from the annual appropriation ordinance based on the way the Comptroller's Office chose to represent the board cuts that year, which might show a slightly higher number, but that is the number we report every year. Here's our budget uses. Again, a budget is really a statement of our priorities. What you see here is broken down by our divisions, but I assure you the number one investment we make is staff. It's not close. This year, it ticked up to about 2/3 of our budget, or 65%. This reflects that while as a library, we do provide amazing things, which is great, it really comes down to the people here at the library. Our capital investments are cyclical, largely one-time in nature. Our capital investment here for 25 is actually a reduction of $23 million, but we know that we have significant capital investments that we're going to need to make on the horizon. The lower right table you'll see are the position counts. FTE stands for full-time equivalent positions. And what you see there, that growth in FTE is not a result of new positions. If you recall, the mayor instructed no new positions, and we did not add any. But in the last cycle, fiscal year 24, we did add quite a few new positions, and acknowledging that we don't hire people on July 1st, we don't budget them at a full person. So those all get bumped up in the next year, which was 25. That accounts for 3.2 FTE of that growth. And as I had brought to you back in February, our hiring is actually sped up. And what that means is that positions spend less time vacant. So we have to budget some extra FTE worth of dollars, and that gets reflected here as the rest of that difference, about 3.3 FTE for that sped up hiring. So this will be a quick review of the budget proposals that were brought to you back in February. Again, we asked for about $2.2 million in budget proposals in fiscal year 25, of which nearly $1.5 million was all in one time, knowing that we were entering into a difficult budget climate. The other was $723,000 into the ongoing. The facilities, maintenance, and infrastructure, that's 74.7, does look really large every year. This is a little bit technical, but because of the way we have to budget that every year, that is actually a new investment every time. It doesn't get to stay in the baseline. So that's why that percentage is always a bit high. Also, hopefully this table still looks familiar, as it was not that long ago, I hope. This table really reflects what we submitted to the mayor and ultimately the Board of Supervisors that you had approved last February. And so now I'll go over some key changes. So what's changed? Well, the revenue outlook unfortunately has worsened. The Library Preservation Fund, as I mentioned, is made up roughly half general fund and property tax. What was maybe a little bit unexpected or surprising is that the property tax stayed relatively flat, so it only went down about 400,000. It's really the general fund share that has fallen. That's $2.6 million in fiscal year '25. So the budget we presented to you did not anticipate using any fund balance in fiscal year '25. That was obviously a bit optimistic. So we are having to use some fund balance this year. What is a little bit different is that we are anticipating to use fund balance again next year, which is not typical. So we're monitoring that situation very closely, and we will revisit the fiscal year '26 revenues and expenditures with the upcoming cycle. So that's what's changed on the revenue side. The expenditures also went up a little bit. The cost drivers are mainly on the labor side, with a few exceptions. One major exception is we did coordinate with the mayor's office so that we are participating more in the Fulton Street activation, just right out here, with our partners at OEWD to the tune of about $500,000. Our workers' comp costs rise with labor, with our overall labor costs that went up $300,000. And also, I'm sure for San Francisco residents, you're well aware the rising utility costs. We are not immune to those either. And so we did have a significant increase of $300,000. This year, we are happily bringing on 2 fellows, and those cost around $250,000 or $250,000, $240,000 for the 2. And that $0.9 million in labor increases, the budget we brought to you in February, we did our best to estimate what we thought the new labor contracts would be this year. We got pretty close, but we did underestimate it a little bit. And so that almost $1 million extra in labor, we need to fit that bill. The board reductions is that table there on the bottom. We're confident that those costs are ones we can absorb without any noticeable impact to our services and programs. It was a really pleasant negotiation this year, actually, given the difficult cycle, and we worked really cooperatively with the board. And lastly, I want to thank again the Friends of the Friends of Foundation San Francisco Public Library. The board approved our annual grant of $1,080,375. This is a minor increase, 5% from the prior cycle. Fiscal year '24 was $1,030,400. This gift is a mix of unrestricted and restricted funds, and the funding supports signature library programming, including the One City, One Book, Night of Ideas, Summer Stride, which is underway, and all of our cultural programming throughout the year. Some highlights for the upcoming fiscal year include $50,000 in grants programming here at the main library, $131,000 for the branches, which is approximately $5,000 a branch, and $150,000 for the James C. Hormel LGBTQIAA+ Center. We certainly appreciate all the donors and the library supporters for the financial supports that makes this a grant award possible. And that kicks off the thank yous. I want to thank everyone involved in the budget process, the divisions, leadership, the staff, the countless hours they put into the budget process, Maureen, Christine, our budget manager, Christine Murdoch, and of course, Michael, thank you, and all of you commissioners. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Now we get to start planning to do it all over again. All right, our next presenter is Michelle Jeffers, Chief of Community Programs and Partnerships, and she's going to talk about our partnership with the Junior Giants.
Oh, this is good. Hi, good evening, Commissioners. Oops, let me move this. It's funny that it stops at this picture, which is us doing outreach at Chase Center for the Warriors summer reading event, because we also did outreach with the Giants for Junior Giants 2024. And I'm delighted to tell you about this year's activities. First of all, let me give you some background on Junior Giants. It's a non-competitive co-ed baseball and softball program supported by the San Francisco Giants every summer. In addition to playing ball, The youth that participate are encouraged to keep reading, keep learning all summer. So it has a real strong reading tie-in and connects to our own summer reading program. There are 24,000 youth that participate in it in California, Nevada, and Oregon. We serve at Oracle Park the youth that are in Northern California. So we get kids from as far away as like Redding and Lathrop, but also the San Francisco and Daly City and San Mateo teams all come through. So it's a really great day-long event that if the kids have done all their activities between playing and reading and doing their STEM activities, they get invited to this celebration at Oracle Park, and that's where we come in. So this was, again, our morning crew that was there to set up at 7 a.m. On a beautiful Sunday, beautiful for San Francisco, Sunday morning, to unpack hundreds of boxes of books and create a beautiful display for all the kids who start coming through at 9 a.m. The day really begins in the weeks before Junior Giants, so when we work with Collection Development Office to order some 7,000 to 8,000 books to give away on this day, and they do a great job of picking really beautiful books, a lot of multilingual books for community, and we pick a lot of storybooks all the way up to high school chapter books because we get the kids in Junior Giants are generally school age, but we get a lot of siblings that come through as well. And we want everybody to get a book every year. So the books get delivered to Oracle Park a few days ahead, and then we show up to unpack them. This year we had more than 4,000 players participated that earned the right to come to the Junior Giants Festival. And then, of course, they bring siblings and family members, who, like I said, who also get to pick a book. So everybody comes home with a new book. And we're obviously been doing it for a long time now. I think we're in the range of 8 to 9 years of doing it. So we're a key partner with the Giants, and we get our logo up on the big screen. And we're really happy that they are so tied into reading with us for this region-wide event. The kids get to go on the ball field that the professional baseball players use, and then they get to also participate in STEM activities. And then your final stop at the ballpark is the library, where you get to pick books. So it's a really great, it's a great culmination of their activity for the day to end up at the library. Here's some examples of our book displays. Sometimes the kids are so excited by the books that they can't even wait to take them home. They have to find chairs at the ballpark and start reading their books right away, which I love. We had one of our staff members served as our front man, and the kids, the Junior Giant players, all come through this one walkway, and he was out there greeting everybody, giving them bookmarks, and kind of shepherding them into the library area. And in addition to the books that we gave away, we actually signed up more than 100 people with library cards that day. Hence what Shelley was mentioning about people from around California ending up with library cards. Yeah, that was part of that. And this is our SFPL closing crew, so it's a long day for us, and we stay till about 7:30 that evening, getting through all the kids that come through. The last group comes through at 7, and then we pack up any of the remaining books. It is a long day, but it's a really fun day, and the staff love being out there and getting that direct connection with kids that want to pick out books. So I'm just looking forward to this annual event. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Michelle. I hate I missed it this year. I did not miss this next event, and I am pleased to introduce our next presenter, Shauna Sherman, the manager of our African American Center. And she's going to talk about this Protect the Freedom to Read rally that we hosted here at the library in partnership with SFUSD and the Third Baptist Church Freedom School.
Good evening, commissioners. Good evening, Michael. And thank you for having me here today to talk about one of the high points of my summer, when we got to stand in solidarity along with SFUSD, with scholars from the Third Baptist Church Freedom School to help elevate their efforts to get the word out about protecting our freedom to read. So at the Freedom School, one of their main goals is to encourage the love of reading among their mostly African American youth from elementary to middle school, whom they call scholars. A majority, mostly from the Western Addition, or the students come from the Western Addition, and according to Ms. Jessica Fontenot, the leader of the program, and longtime teacher, Ms. Celestine White, the culturally responsive summer program highlights Black authors and teaches the scholars to see themselves in a variety of different places for their careers. And they also teach different ways that the scholars can impact have impact with lessons on themes of self, family, community, and the world. And for the past few years, the program has been housed at the Rosa Parks Elementary School. So we heard about the Freedom School's efforts to rally against book banning through our partner, Letitia Irving, director of the African American Achievement and Leadership Initiative, also known as ALI, at SFUSD. And as the librarian for the African American Center, I've always thought it my obligation to serve Black youth, and in partnership with Naomi Jelks, our racial equity manager, we have been building our relationship with Ali over the years through visiting back to school nights, offering books through redistribution and book giveaways, helping host their literacy workshops, and prior to the pandemic, we had a book club with the Black Student Union at Soda High School. So what we hope at the center, which was a space built by community fundraising, is to support and elevate the community's needs as our own, and making the community the primary decision driver for our programming, especially like we did on this day, July 17th. So the rally was part of the Freedom School's National Day of Social Action, which is a Children's Defense Fund program, and it's an example of how our three organizations can come together to support Black scholars. And we felt lucky to get the call to help host the rally on our Fulton Street steps, and we're honored to tour the students through the main library at the main Children's Center, the Mix, and the AAC. So today there is a flourishing of titles on Black subjects where students can see a mirror to their lives and books, and get books that can help them give confidence to strive in the society that at one point outlawed our right to read. But as we all are familiar, book challenges have been on the rise in our country as of late, and many of those challenges come to books with a Black focus. So here on this slide, you'll see some of the books that have been challenged in some other states. Books like For Black Girls Like Me, books like I Am Enough, and Hey Black Child. While it's important to note that all of these books are available at SFPL, the scholars at the Freedom School reminded us that day that we can support folks in other parts of our state and our country by letting our voices be heard along with theirs. So that Wednesday, in solidarity with readers everywhere, Freedom School scholars started the rally lined up at City Hall to practice their rallying call. Protect the freedom to read, don't ban books. Protect the freedom to read, don't ban books, they chanted. Then the march began. Their signs read, stop banning books. You can't love freedom and ban books, and protect Black books, as they marched from City Hall to the main library. Freedom School scholars, teachers, mentors, parents, staff from Ali, the school district, and SFPL, and our very own city librarian joined in the protest. In all, we were about 50 strong. Arriving at the library steps on Fulton Street, the scholars assembled for a harambe, meaning all pulled together in Swahili, which is a short program with songs and then speeches urging that their right to read not be impinged. Lyrics of one of the songs they sang, Something Inside So Strong by Labi Sifre, went, deny my place in time, you squander the wealth that's mine. My light will shine so brightly it will blind you because there's something inside so strong, so strong. It was so touching to see that. So the library has long supported literacy. In fact, literacy is what we're all about. And when we come together for programs like these, we strengthen our communities and let the students know that we are here to support them. We want all SF students to succeed and love nothing more to see reading happen. On this slide, you can see one of the scholars who couldn't wait to get her hands on the copy of The New Kid by Jerry Craft, which is a Newbery Award-winning book about an African-American boy entering a predominantly white school, which is also challenged in school districts in Texas and Pennsylvania. After the rally, which included speeches from students, parents, from SFUSD Superintendent Dr. Matt Wayne, from Miss Irving, Ali, and our city librarian, scholars visited the Maine Children's Center for a tour where they learned that, yes, you can check out 100 books at a time from the library. And they also participated in a pickling program and got a free summer stride book. Thank you to Miss Lenny Matthews, manager of the Maine Children's Center, for her partnership in this program. And after the Children's Center, some older youth visited the Mix, where they got to see all the cool stuff there. Thank you, Jason Hill and staff at the Mix. And thank you also to Jamie Wong and Michelle Jeffers, who accompanied us on our walk and around the Maine. And to all the people who help make things happen behind the scenes, like our media services department, who helped our voices be heard that day, and custodial, who helped us get a place to sit. So really, how lucky are we to be able to provide a literacy service to our Black and Brown youth? And thank you to our partners, Ali at the school district, to Miss White and Miss Jessica, and the scholars and mentors who came to the library to share their protests. We want you to know that the library belongs to you as it belongs to everyone, and we'd love to partner again. My second happiest day at the library this summer was seeing Jameson, one of the young speakers that day, come back to the AAC a week later to see our program on Hattie McDaniel with his caretaker. And again, from Labby Safri, brothers and sisters, when they insist we're just not good enough, well, we know better. Just look him in his eyes and say, we're going to do it anyway. And in the words of the Freedom School scholars, protect the freedom to read, don't ban books. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. That was indeed the best day ever. It was a farmer's market Wednesday, so these youth had, easily 100 people out there cheering them on and participating in the rally. It was beautiful. And I want to thank Shauna for her leadership in helping us to strengthen our partnership with the SFUSD as well. And that concludes the City Librarian's report.
Well, once again, it does not disappoint and only soars to new higher levels of excellence and outreach and equity, so thank you. Before we bring this to the Commission for discussion and questions, we open this up for public comment. Public comment is now open here in Corrette.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, Library Users Association. Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. It's my recollection that last summer, I believe about a year ago, Shelley Cocking presented something that showed not just the drop-dead open hours during COVID for a whole time period that you might use to compare with e-books, print books, and so on, but also how much was spent on e-books versus print. And I believe that for at least 4 years, the e-book has approximately equaled and in some cases exceeded slightly the print expenditures. I'm concerned about especially with relatively current material, I'm concerned that I see ebook availability and long waiting lists for print. I also see ebook titles only and no print at all. So I'm concerned with the budget not to neglect.
Excuse me, we're talking about the city librarian's report?
Yeah, that includes the budget discussion, and I don't want books to be neglected or debookified. And I'm getting that impression when I go to look for books that I'm reading about or hearing about and so on. And that's what I just described. Don't neglect print books, which a lot of people like. I also thank the folks for the presentations. The book giveaways are interesting. You're not giving away Kindles, you're not giving away ebooks, you're giving away actual books. And I think actual books are different from ebooks. People have particular fondness for them. And even for those who don't, there are lots of people who prefer to read an actual book. I'm wondering whether the 250,000 books that go as giveaways are being counted towards circulation or in some other fashion as being used by folks. I'm also concerned that the measurements for books and print don't include the things that I talked about, like browsing. No count at all of current, for example, magazines and newspapers. So I think that needs to be considered as well when you're thinking about print. I'm glad to hear about all the other sorts of things. I think also that how much publicity you give counts for a lot. So, for example, on the top 10 circulation, you had Poverty by America, which you gave a lot of publicity to and had a special program with city arts and lectures. I think when you give publicity to material, it will be picked up by the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Next public comment.
Hello, good evening. My name is Letitia Irving. I'm the Director of African American Achievement and Leadership here in San Francisco Unified School District, and I am used to 1 minute. So I wrote it down because SF Unified doesn't give us 3 minutes. I'm simply here to say thank you and job well done to the San Francisco Public Library, to Third Baptist Freedom School, and just to our collaboration. The Freedom to Read rally was an incredible experience for our young people and timely. It was a perfect civic engagement activity in alignment with the Children's Defense Fund's National Day of Action. And it would not have been possible without our San Francisco Public Library and their unwavering support for our students beyond just the dwelling of this building. Beyond the event, the San Francisco Public Library has been instrumental in our department, the Ali's department's work, in creating access to literature that mirrors our students and opens up their imagination to something beyond the common narrative that's presented to them in the news and often in our classrooms. In addition, the San Francisco Public Library has offered their partnership beyond the supply of books. They're not just giving us books, they've offered space here at the public library. We've held a couple of events here. Tutoring, the option of online tutoring, which is really incredible. Adult literacy support, classroom library sets. As of recent, thank you, Michael, for responding and making sure we have classrooms called Mastering Cultural Identity, where we are emphasizing cultural identity for our young people, for especially our Black boys. We are looking at how do we build their sense of agency and their efficacy. And now we have books to support the work that we're doing, thanks to the San Francisco Public Library. So I'll skip the rest and just say we're such grateful partners. Thank you to our incredible librarians. Thank you to Shauna, who has been with me from the very beginning, to Naomi and to Michael Lambert, our city librarian. It was incredible to see you rallying and walking side by side with our young people. Thank you. We're very grateful.
Thank you.
Hello, good evening. Again, like Letitia said, I am used to 1 minute as well. My name is Marisha Robinson, and I support the African American Parent Advisory Council as their program manager under the leadership of Director Irving on the Ali team. I just want to give a huge shout out and thank you to Naomi and Shauna and the newest manager of the Children's Center, Lenny, for their dedication and continued support of APAC. We were able to host our events here. We were able to partner with them to support our African American and Pacific Islander students that came into the district as kindergartners to help achieve, if y'all haven't heard, their proficiency in reading, an ELA proficiency in reading for this school year, the previous school year. And so we are thankful for that space to be able to bring our families in to give them hands-on workshops. APAC since its inception in 2013 has had an overarching theme of supporting literacy, and this could not have been done without the support of the San Francisco Public Library. Again, with the library's support, we have been able to keep our 10 little free libraries that are strategically placed throughout the city in places where Black and brown children have access to them, filled with books, as they love to read them, but sometimes forget to return them and take another book. We also have not been able to hold our many literacy events. We do Camp Read a Lot, which is really, really popular, and Shauna always shows up with the best books and participates in all the campfire stories, and we appreciate her for that. We also would not be able to fill our families' home libraries with books and curriculum that looking at the time, books and curriculum, and materials that tell their stories, that have characters that look like them, and are written by authors that look like them. And another bonus is that they can now come into the library and see staff that reflects our families as well. And so again, with that, I just say thank you, San Francisco Public Libraries, for all your support. Thank you, Naomi. Thank you, Shauna. And thank you, Lenny.
Any further public comment? Public comments closed, but I just want to thank you for coming to the meeting today and for showing your support and offering your perspectives. Collaboration takes effort, and we are just so honored and proud to be able to partner with such extraordinary organizations and individuals. So we really thank you for participating today. So thank you. We will now open it up for public, for commission discussion, questions. Just want to say we had 3 really fantastic presentations, beginning with Mike. Just want to remind all of us, we've already approved the budget, so there's not a lot to talk about. And and that was a great summary and recap and realization about what's happening in our city. And just remember, to the commissioners, we have 2 months where we're not talking about the budget. Come November, we're back on board. So let's enjoy while the staff starts the new fiscal year. Also just want to say 2 really great presentations by Michelle and Shauna, talking about the breadth, history of what we do, and also the way in which we embrace new opportunities. And so thank you for that. So comments?
No, I would just want to say to Michelle, thank you so much for the way that you and the team lift up the community and create space beyond, for San Franciscans, but for folks that are beyond. Children, you're right, children from all the way out in San Joaquin County and up in Sacramento County, and those areas are coming to these events. And so thank you so much for that beacon that the San Francisco Public Library is. And on July 17th, you know that was my birthday, so I wasn't able to be here, but I am so happy to hear of the report of how beautiful that community event with the children had opportunity to show their agency and to be able to fully express themselves. So thank you so much, Shauna, for your leadership, and thank you so much for our SFUSD leaders. I look forward to meeting you. I used to work with some of your predecessors some years before. I have 2 alumni of San Francisco Unified School District, 2 daughters that graduated there. So I know very much about the work that you are continuing. It's a long trajectory of work that matters, particularly with new generations of children that are coming up. So thank both of you so much for being here. And I'm so grateful that you're partnering with San Francisco Public Library, who is the best library not only in the nation but actually worldwide.
Okay, she summed it up perfectly, and just want to add another thank you to everybody and to all the teams of people behind the presenters today who really make things happen. And next year, if you do this event again, well, I always go to I love the Junior Giants. I couldn't go this year, but we should just all know about these events, and we will come out and support. So thank you, and we will now move on to item number 6, which is how we always end the meeting, which is adjournment. And before we adjourn the meeting, we will open it up for public comment. Public comment's now open.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director, San Francisco, excuse me. Here I go as a Biden, huh? Executive Director, Library Users Association, Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com, and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California, 94117-0544. I appreciated very much a lot of the comments, especially the lengthy discussions about collection and collection expenditures and how you might be potentially jerked around by people who get new toys that are making it a lot easier to borrow materials. And because of the way that circulations are measured, makes it appear in some cases that there's perhaps more use or more popularity for something than there actually might be. Also, what the impact is on those who are still interested in books, and that is a very strong number of folks. I think it would be great if you would not adjourn until you have an item on the agenda, as you have had in the past, as some people still, as some commissions and so on still do, to bring up what you would like discussed at future meetings on the agenda. And those would be some things that would be very valuable to get into the nitty-gritty and the details of costs, of usage, of measurement, and so on, as you already have discussed quite a bit today. Thank you.
Any further public comment? Seeing there's no further public comment is now closed here in Correct, and we move to discussion and action on item number 6. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move to adjourn the meeting.
And do we have a second?
I second it.
We have a motion from Commissioner Lopez and a second from Commissioner Lomax-Garducci to adjourn today's meeting.
And I'll take the roll call. Commissioners, please say aye or no when I call your name. President Wolf?
Aye.
Vice President Wong?
Aye.
Commissioner Mall?
Aye.
Commissioner Lomax-Garducci?
Aye.
Commissioner Lopez?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. The meeting's adjourned. We look forward to seeing everybody back here in September. And here's to a great launch of a new school year ahead. Thank you.